Good morning, sunshine. Welcome to the Cup of Curious podcast with Will, where we talk pop culture, music, movies, faith, and more. So grab your favorite overpriced caffeinated drink and join the conversation. This is the Cup of Curious podcast. You're on, Will.
Hey, God bless everybody. Welcome back to the Cup of Curious podcast with me, your man, Will. And tonight, well, I'm recording in the night, but today's episode, we're talking about what everyone's been talking about the last couple of days, and that is Jesus is King by apparently reformed rapper Kanye West. Now, I'm not here, to judge Kanye or to throw Kanye, under the bus like a lot of believers have been doing, but because there's such a high level of skepticism, and rightfully so, because there's rappers who have done this, who've, say they've turned to God and they've done Christian albums, and they suddenly, went back to what they were. It's fair for me and for anybody else to have, a fair amount of skepticism. But before that, as we all know, it's Cup of Curious, and I do my best to share a different drink with you guys in every episode. And I actually found a brand new drink. Well, not brand new, it's been around for a while. A brand new drink for me that's absolutely delicious. Like, I love this stuff. It's roasted coconut water, and it is by Goya with pulp because I like the meat of a coconut. This stuff is delicious. I've had coconut water, and coconut water is great, but whatever Goya did in terms of, quote unquote roasting it, it enhances the flavor so much more. A nice nutty flavor. Oh, I love that so much. You guys heard me smell the can. But I highly recommend it. If you like coconut and if you like, roasted coconut, this drink is right up your alley. It's delicious. Again, it's by Goya. It's just under $2 at Walmart. So guys, go get it. Try it out. Let me know what you think. So, yes. Kanye West, huh? So, first and foremost, I'm going to say that Kanye West is, a GOAT of hip hop. He's had a lot of crazy moments. He's had a lot of moments that made people wonder what's wrong with the man. But it's hard for anybody to argue that he's not one of the greatest minds in hip hop. He's a great entertainer, and he's a genius in terms of how he maneuvers. So, I guess the very first thing we could talk about is, first of all, my opinion on the album. I gave it once a listen, and I'm going to listen to it again, probably again this week. But I'm pretty confident in my rating when I gave it a 2.5 or 2.5 out of 5. And I think it's because me being so submersed in Christian hip hop for so many years, I just kind of you hear certain things and certain tropes in CHH that it's kind of like, yeah, I heard this before. And, that's just as a consumer, not necessarily as a believer. As a believer, it's great. As a hip hop head who's been, listening to Christian hip hop for the longest time, it's like, I've heard better. But Kanye's heart behind it is, it excels in so many ways. If it's genuine, I should say. If Kanye's heart is genuine in this album, then he's going above and beyond what a lot of current CHH rappers are doing now. And that's saying something, because that's something that we see a lack of, is passion, heart, and of course, genuine worship to God. And there's a lot of rappers in CHH that just, feel as though, I don't want to say threatened, but they feel like this is, I think that's another reason why people feel that this is kind of like out of Kanye, because I guess they figure if once Kanye steps in, it's going to be a completely new, different level of competition, which really there shouldn't be in terms of CHH, but that's a whole nother can of worms for another episode. But what I've done the liberty of doing, I went to Twitter, and I pulled some tweets and responses to Kanye's album from some of the more well-known people of CHH. And for those of you who don't know, CHH is an abbreviation of Christian hip-hop. I'm not going to keep saying Christian hip-hop, so CHH is what I'm saying. So, I have a few of them here, and of course, the one everyone is looking at is Lecrae, because arguably Lecrae is the poster child of Christian hip-hop, even though he doesn't want that title. But we'll get to Lecrae's response last, because it's actually very short and very simple. But I am going to scope through some of these. First one is Derek Minor. Derek Minor was formerly known as Pro. He was signed to Lecrae's label a few years back. He has his own label, Reflection Music Group. He says on Twitter, "I support Big Bro for making positive changes. Now ain't the time for sarcasm for real for real. So much negativity in the world, ain't no way I ain't gonna prop up someone making a change. Thanks Kanye West for being bold about your faith, and hopefully it catches fire." So Derek making it clear that he feels that this is genuine, that he's not gonna get into people. He's not gonna join the crowd that's saying, I don't know. But he says thank you to Kanye, and he's thanking him for being bold about his faith, and hopefully he catches fire. So again, Derek believes that this is 100% genuine. Next is Ambassador. Ambassador is I don't like using the word legend, but he's a veteran in CHH. He's actually part of the Cross movement that's based here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And he says this, and this is a combination of 3 tweets. He said 3 things I tell Kanye West. 1, since we heard of your faith in Christ Jesus, we have ceased to pray. We have not ceased in praying for you, asking that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so as to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord. 2, if the world hates you, know that it has hated Jesus before it had hated you. If you were of the world will love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but he chose you out of the world hates you. And 3, enough with what unbelievers want to do, living in sensuality, drunkenness, orgies, etc. With respect to this, they are not surprised when you do not join them and they malign you. But they will give account to him who is ready to judge all. So Ambassador is just throwing a whole bunch of scriptures, a combination of scriptures at Kanye. So when Kanye, is receiving this kind of backlash. There you go, backlash from people, maybe some of his faithful supporters who are now hating on him because he's doing this kind of music. He's reminding him that they hated Jesus before they hated him, and because Jesus chose him and took him out of that situation, they hate him. So that's actually very encouraging from Ambassador. Loso. Loso is a Christian rapper who's in the battle rap scene. And if you haven't bothered to check out battle rap because it's a completely other world than from what you regularly listen to, I encourage you to check out the 4 horsemen of battle rap, which are 4 brothers, Christian rappers who are in battle rap actively, and they are phenomenal. Loso, The Saga, who also goes by Sensei Saga, Street Hymns, and A-Ward. These 4 brothers together are known as the 4 Horsemen, and they're doing their thing in battle rap. Loso, arguably, for some, is undefeated, maybe 1 or 2 losses. The Saga has bounced back after his battle with Chess. So just look up these gentlemen, people, because they are phenomenal. They are battle rapping against brothers who are cursing and using violent lyrics. But I'm telling you, these guys have pulled victories, and they're Christian in their lyrics. They're clean with their lyrics. So that it's shocking that guys like that are winning. But yes, Loso said, keep the same energy when people ask you if you're a Christian artist. Because some of y'all CHH definitely didn't want to be associated to anything close to this, and would have thought Jesus is King was a corny title album if Shaolin, The Truth, or Bizzle did it. And you know what? He hits a point here. In striving to be, creative in CHH, some of us, will go the extra mile to become creative with titles or song lyrics or, album titles or concepts, which is not wrong, for the record, not wrong at all, because I'm one of those people. I like trying to be very metaphorical with my lyrics. I like trying to have in-depth album titles, that people want to search more into. That's me. But there are some people who feel like something like Jesus is King, oh, it's so simple, it's so corny, it's trash because, he's not saying nothing. They're taking it for face value. Sometimes the most simplest titles are the most powerful albums. And I'm not just talking about CHH. I'm talking about, contemporary Christian music, traditional gospel music. When you have sometimes you don't worry about titles or names per se. Excuse me. But you rather focus on the content of the album. And everybody's different, because again, I want to say again that trying to be creative and have creative titles and names and all that is not bad. But that shouldn't be our emphasis, because you could have like the most interesting titled album, but then your lyrics can be trash, or your message may not even be clear to some listeners, as opposed to having something as simple as, for example, Jesus is King, and your lyrics are touching people, they're ministering to people. So Loso hits a point, because especially with a lot of today's more current CHH artists, they're just so determined to be more different and stand out that titles like Jesus is King wouldn't even be on their radar in terms of choices. So I definitely appreciate Loso's input on the matter. Now, this is an interesting entry. Catafant, a combination of cat and elephant, who is, by the way, the wife of Words Played, who's part of Minor League with Andy Mineo. Catafant, she's a singer. She has done a project. I heard it. She says, LOL at the CHH rappers talking about we'll see if he's really changed. Like you are the only one with insight on people's hearts. If we could all be holy enough to ride that high horse of yours. Now she's obviously pointing at the fact that there's people who are saying we'll see about Kanye's, quote unquote transformation. And I don't blame her for feeling that way, because this situation is so it's cluttered, because you have people who are open arms embracing Kanye, but then you do have people on the other side, with eyebrows raised saying, I don't know, we'll see. And I understand where she's coming from, because, Christians, unfortunately, not all, but some, can be some of the most judgmental people, and they won't even give you a day to show that, you've changed. And to be honest, sometimes it takes more than a day to show it. Some people don't bear fruit immediately. Some people take time. It's a process. Some people can be delivered, like that, at a snap of a finger. But others, it takes a process. Everybody's different. And we honestly don't know where Kanye is in his spiritual life. Now, here's something I don't doubt. I don't doubt that Kanye knows something about the Word of God, because I believe he does know something. Kanye's no fool. People make fun of him a lot. The media makes fun of him a lot. But the truth of the matter is, I do believe Kanye is a very, very smart man. And I do know that Kanye knows some of the Bible. How much of it, I don't know. But I respect Catafant's entry. I respect her tweet on the matter. But I also understand the people who are like, I don't know. Because as I said in the beginning, we've had rappers who have, said, oh, I'm rapping for God now, or I'm singing. Not even rappers, artists who say I'm rapping for God now, I'm singing for God, only to turn around and, get back to their lifestyle that is in opposition to the kingdom. Probably the most recent one was Snoop Dogg, where he did his album, which I believe was called The Bible of Love, or The Book of Love, something like that. I gave that a listen, and listen, the production was top notch. It was great. He had the song "When My Words Are For You," I believe it's called, with Tone, another former gospel artist. And it was a good album. And I think, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, Snoop even got nominated for, I think, either a Stellar or a Dove Award for that album. And unfortunately, it seems that Snoop Dogg is not following up, with the whole gospel thing. And that's really disheartening when you get excited to see these artists, say that they're doing gospel now, or they're singing for God, only to turn around later and to go back to what they were doing. And again, it goes back to some Christians being so harshly judgmental. And that's something we really, really have to work on, because some of us think we're, like Catafant put it, as she put it, we're on this high horse where we can only see into people's hearts. When we don't. We honestly don't. we have to go by what the Bible says. The Bible says you'll know them by their fruits. We don't know how long it will take for Kanye to bear fruit because we don't know what stage he is in his relationship with God. But just judging by the album, it does seem like, there's something happening there. There was a song on his album where he's singing, not rapping, but he's singing. And I think he sings a few times in this album. Kanye's not the greatest singer. But when he was singing, for me personally, when I heard him, it sounded like he didn't care that his voice wasn't tuned in, with auto-tune, or that, there was no adjustments to the vocal. He was just giving this raw worship to him, to God. And for me, that was something positive for me that kind of affirmed, like, okay, there is something happening here. I think there is something genuine in Kanye that's happening here. But, and there is a but, we'll talk about something that kind of makes me step back a bit. And we're going to talk about that probably in the later half of this podcast. But continuing with these tweets, the next one kind of follows what Loso said. And it's by Wande, Wande. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And she's the first female artist to be signed to Reach Records. She tweeted, "But I will say, if someone in this space dropped this, the response would be different." And again, like I said, it ties with kind of what Loso said. The response would be different because the current state of CHH, in my opinion, is where we have to be creative. We have to stand out. We have to do this, and that. And while it's not wrong, we're in a place where we kind of ignore the simplicity of just saying, this is the work of God. This is the kingdom. This is Jesus. This is God. Some of us are so focused on the metaphors and the symbolism that we kind of miss the mark of what we're trying to say. I've always been a person who believed that you can blend artistry and the gospel beautifully together, and it could do amazing things. But when the focus is more on metaphors and symbolisms and stuff like that, we kind of lose sight of, the simplicity of the gospel, which, let's be honest, it's simple. The gospel is simple. Jesus saves. It's as simple as probably the world's most famous Bible verse, John 3:16. "For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son to die on the cross, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life." And again, there's nothing wrong with being creative in how you display that, because there's people who listen to rap music who are looking for lyrics, who are looking for bars, and that's fine. But there's got to be a point in time where we just present the gospel to people, and I think that's what Kanye did in such a simple way. And in spite of its simplicity, it was very well produced. When you sit back and listen to it, like I said, I have to listen to it again. But, just the great use of choirs, and there were some songs in there that honestly reminded me of College Dropout, which in my opinion was Kanye's best album in his body of work. But, excuse me, I'm going through my papers of tweets because I printed out like 2 pages. An interesting one came from Eshawn Burgundy, who is another rapper who was formerly signed with Humble Beast Records. He tweeted, "Has he been radically changed, or is this the greatest album rollout in history? Is each demonstration strategically planned or a natural progression of faith? Are we seeing a man born again, or is it a marketing campaign from a genius entertainer? We shall see." And I think that's the best way to explain, the side where people are just like, I don't know. Because, like I said, Kanye is a very smart man, and he's very smart in marketing. He knows what he's doing in terms of, business. Kanye's a businessman. And speaking in terms of business, and I hate saying this, I just really hate saying this, Christianity also, unfortunately, is a business to some people, especially in the realm of Christian music. People think the Christian music industry is a lot different than, the secular or mainstream. But you will hear stories that will surprise you about how twisted, how political the Christian music industry is. That's why some people are just better off being independent, because Christian music pulls in a lot of money. I know that may seem surprising to a lot of people, but Christian music indeed makes a lot of money. Around the 80s, the early 80s, gospel music, the revenues apparently were 180 million. 10 years later, it would total to 680 million. And 10 years later, we're talking about the 90s. So imagine, with all the new music that's out and all the Christian radio stations out, I would not be surprised to hear that Christian music is raking in at least over $1 billion a year. I would not be surprised to hear that. So when you are an artist who maybe is trying to, maybe struggling, and I don't know if Kanye is struggling in terms of his music prior to Jesus is King. And again, I'm not assuming his motives. I'm just saying that if an artist is struggling and they see that there's some money in Christian music, they're going to want to stick their hand in the pot. They're going to want a slice of that pie. And unfortunately, that's what happens. They start saying that they're going to serve Christ, that they are, doing this, doing that. And they start doing gospel music or Christian music, CCM, Christian rock, whatever the case may be. And it's all just a money grab, and it's sad. It's unfortunate. And I can understand Ishan's concern and everybody's concern, because again, we've seen this happen before. But if it's genuine, I believe God can use Kanye in a powerful way, because Kanye is highly respected and he's loved by so many people. So there's no reason to think that, God can't use Kanye. It's kind of like when Justin Bieber started singing worship and started making statements about going back to God. I don't know where he is in that, but I believe God can use Justin Bieber powerfully. I believe God can use anybody. It would be awesome one day to turn around and hear, Adele is going to be singing gospel music. It would be awesome to hear Bruno Mars say that, or Ariana Grande, or Billie Eilish, or whomever else. God can use anybody. And with that being said, that reminds me, I actually set up a poll on Instagram. And on that poll, I asked, would you be upset if your favorite mainstream or secular artist would start singing Christian music because they had an encounter with God? Now, here's the interesting thing. Over 50 people seen this question, but only 10 answered the poll. 9 people said they would be happy to see their favorite artist singing this kind of music, singing Christian music. 1 person said no. And then the follow-up question was, would you support them? And again, 9 people said they would, 1 person said they wouldn't. But the fact that over 50 people seen this poll and didn't want to answer, it struck me, because it's like, oh, I don't want to give you an answer, because it's gonna reflect my character. And some of these people that I know are Christians, or they're believers, and maybe they didn't want to answer because they didn't want to answer. That is a possibility. But I think, first of all, this has got to be like another subject for another podcast. But I think some people just don't like the idea of somebody they love in the mainstream doing Christian music, despite the fact that they're Christians themselves. And I actually have a few people that I know who are like that, who are just like annoyed at the idea of someone like Ariana or Billy or Sam Smith, making a 180 and start doing Christian music. It annoys them, and I think that's so interesting. But that will be a subject for another time. So, as I mentioned earlier, there are some red flags that's making me kind of wonder Kanye's position. And maybe these concerns of mine are minimal, but I don't know, it's really something that makes me wonder. Well, first of all, I just want to say that as of the time of this recording, Jesus is King is still number 1 on the charts. Despite the fact that I gave it, that I personally gave it a 2.5 out of 5, which is the same thing that Rolling Stone gave him. Pitchfork gave him 7.2 out of 10. Entertainment Weekly gave him a C+. Metacritic gave him 56 out of 100. So I think we're all kind of on the same page in terms of like the rating of his music. What honestly surprised me too is that as short as this album is about 27 minutes. less than half an hour, it has 31 writers, and this is not including West himself or his 6 collaborations. It's just bizarre to me. I have an issue with ghostwriters, and I'll talk about that in another episode. But the biggest concern that I have is the merchandise. The merchandise that's being sold for Jesus is King. Now, there's some that's pretty cool. Vinyl is being sold, and people are buying vinyl again. Some people are just collecting it, or some people are genuinely playing it. I like vinyl. I hope to have a vinyl collection one day. He's even selling cassettes, which I think is really cool for people who can't who don't have CD players in their cars. They can only play tapes. So I think that's really cool that he has, a cassette version of his album. But then we get to the clothing. He has Jesus is King socks. And I don't know what's wrong with the imagery. Maybe it's me or it's intentional. But the socks look dirty. They look dirty. They're not all that impressive in terms of design. It's just socks, ankle socks with I think Jesus is King on top. Again, they look dingy. And those are being sold for $20. And maybe that's not a bad price for, I guess, a brand that's Kanye. Kanye's the brand. But then he's selling crew necks and sweaters and stuff like that, and they're ranging from $170 to $250. For some people, that's a paycheck. That's half a paycheck. For people who are struggling, that's a ridiculous amount of money for shirts with images of Jesus on it, which the Bible says that we should have no graven images of Jesus. And so it's just weird to me that you're selling this product. Is it because Jesus is King? It's not going to sell a lot in terms of music. And again, it had to, because it's number 1 on the charts. But it's just weird, guys, and that's a red flag for me. I'm not against people selling merchandise for themselves, because I sell merchandise myself. But I would never sell, an image of Jesus and sell it for God this amount of money. It's ridiculous, and that is a red flag for me. Because we kind of go back to what Eshon Burgundy says, a marketing campaign from a genius entertainer. That's concerning to me, and I'm hoping that maybe that's just maybe a bump in the road for Kanye. That maybe somebody could talk to him and say, hey, you might want to tone this down a bit. Because for the record, there's Christian fashion labels that are unnecessarily expensive. I think God is Dope is one of them. I like their clothing, but they're really expensive. And then the Fear of God, I think, is another one. That's high fashion, and I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. But yeah, honestly, that's the only sign that's giving me currently, anyway, a red flag. I was told through Facebook that Kanye was in an interview, and he was saying that God was using him to show off. I'm not too concerned with that, because I've heard that people saying God is showing off, and God may use people to show off, because it's not the people, it's God. So I'm not too concerned with that. I will probably need to hear the interview and get a better context of it. But just from the little bit I've read and heard, I'm not too concerned with that. But guys, you let me know. What do you think of Kanye West? Do you think this is a genuine move of faith? Did you like Jesus is King? What do you think about the merchandise sales? You think the prices are too high? And tell me what you think about some of the tweets. Oh, and I did promise you that I would mention Lecrae's tweet, because he was the one everybody was looking for. And Lecrae simply said, regardless of how you feel about Kanye West, the content is refreshing to hear. God will get his glory, and Jesus is King. Well, and that's the truth. No matter how you feel about Kanye West, Jesus will always be king, whether Kanye says it or not. But guys, please let me know what you think. And I will talk to you guys next time, all right? God bless you guys. I love you guys, and I will catch you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the show. Have a suggestion for the next episode? Want Will to answer a question? Want to recommend a drink or tell him to give the voiceover guy a pay raise? Then shoot an email at cupofcurious@gmail.com or slide in our DMs on Instagram @cupofcurious. Remember, stay thirsty and stay curious.